Yes, so the Hooke's law was the last one that I covered. See this graph, if you plot stress versus strain, and then there are phrases like you see, as load increases and you have marked 2 points in the center of the rod, because you are not taking, because some portion has to go into for gripping first, so it has to be larger diameter, then you have to chamfer it, you have to make it gradual change. So in the center where you see that the cross section is more or less same, you mark, that is called gauge length. You mark some distance, there are 2 points which are marked, okay, so that is called gauge length. That means there you are assuming that the cross section is more or less same, average cross section is same, and then you start loading it. Now once you load it, the rod is under tension, then the particles go on loosening up in the tensile direction, and there will be shortening of the diameter. Diameter is start reducing, okay, because it is under tension. And in the center you will find after some time that it forms a neck. At the time of failure, it is a neck failure, especially the steel rod. It forms a neck. That means the failure is, of course, if it is the rod is like this, so this portion goes into the machine, this portion goes into the machine, and then you pull. You have marked 2 points here, and then distance between this also you have measured, so this is called gauge. And then afterwards, as it is under tension P and P, you will find the distance between these 2 points will go on increasing, and after some time this cross section will become something like, in fact, as the load increases, you can see that necking starts happening, here in the center, and finally it will break over here. So final will be the break point. So this diagram we drew, and then we said yes, it is something like this, then there is a change, then there is a yielding zone. Yielding means at constant stress there the material starts flowing, so this is called yielding, and then again the material hardens, so there is some increase like this, it goes up, goes to a hump, maximum ultimate stress, and then here it breaks. Suddenly there will be thud, sound, and then the rod will break here. So this is called sigma u ultimate. This level is sigma y yield, and this maximum strain in the is about 1%. Yes, it is. These strains are very small, very small strains. So you will find this, and then this will be values I will not be able to give you. These are well established, and here if you draw this, if you take the slope, this slope is called, this is a constant slope, and this we call modulus of elasticity of the material, E, the slope of this linear portion only. So this I had told you, and you must, now the people involved with this diagram are many. It is There is a relationship that exists in the linear zone between stress is proportional to strain. Stress is proportional to strain, therefore, this becomes equal to a constant of proportionality into strain. So, E becomes your this. Now, this is known as Hooke's law, simple Hooke's law for tensile stresses. In fact, we used to do it in our 11th or 12th standard and perform this experiment on a wire. You hold fix the wire in the ceiling and then apply 1 kilogram, 2 kilogram, 3 kilogram and then measure the distance between 2 points, and then this diagram used to be drawn for a small wire, simple wire. But here in engineering, now you do wire is a material, it's all right, it's also deformable material, but then it can be rolled, bent, while this rod cannot be bent, easily. So, this is a deformable. So, we do experiment here on a rod. Now, this was there. So, the people who are involved with this diagram are, it is called Hooke's law. So, I will just give you the his name was Robert Hooke and his life span was from 1635 to 1703. You can see the history of mechanics. So, this is how Robert Hooke was an Englishman. So, this is see, we call England, olden days when our country was under domination of British, so it's England. But then when you go there, you find England is only one part of the total British Empire, So, England is the only, then you have Wales, you have Ireland, you have Scotland, there are so many. So, England is, but then the English people think they are the masters, rulers, So, most of the, so England, so he was an English, and so this law is, is after him, Robert Hooke, Hooke's law, and modulus of velocity of steel is something like 210 GPa, that is gigapascal. Of aluminium it is much less, it is 73 GPa. Then there is another Robert Hooke's law, Young's modulus. We also call this, that E is called Young's modulus. Hooke performed the experiment. Perhaps Robert Hooke started this whole story, and he performed this experiment on springs, not on a wire or a rod. So, there was another person, Thomas Young. That is why we call it Young's modulus, and his life span is 1773 to 1829. Again, this gentleman also was English, and we have, so we call it that E, that constant of proportionality. We call it modulus of velocity, and it goes by his name, we call it Young's modulus. Young's modulus. So, these are the two people who, with which this whole experiment and the law can be remembered. Then we have also noted that See, the architect who must have designed this never taught. So he did not know, how much space is required for keeping things. Okay, the table should have been slightly bigger. We start realizing this unfortunately in our country only after getting the whole thing done, and we don't do all this time motion study really, yes, all the teacher is what should be the size, how will you feel comfortable, all these things are well established and standards are available. It is not that those are not available, they are available elsewhere, but we don't follow the standard. Standards of windows, doors, panels, everything is available. But then here in our country, every architect tries to have his own standard. He tries to modify, because then there is no law here which says that no, you must follow a standard. So they try to give their own touch. Incidentally, the architect who has designed this building is our own. I have taught him in 1971. He is a 1971 graduate, civil engineering. And after finishing civil engineering, he went to Ahmedabad to do architecture. Perhaps he liked, so he did architecture, and now he is a practicing architect. He is a good architect, that way I will say that. So now this is on the sidelines, there was something else also I wanted to tell you. Okay, this rod is there, and then yes, this is like this. Now when you apply a load, of course this will expand. So I will put it by a dotted line. So I have not put a load when it is. So now here you have applied a load. So we always notice that when a rod is there, and if you apply a load in the axial direction, its cross section reduces. Axial direction tensile load. My lecture is being recorded, so they will say not always. When you apply a compressive load, then the cross section will increase. So this is a tensile load, so cross section has reduced. Now this effect, that length increases, so this we call change in length in this direction. L naught, original L naught has become how much? Tell me, original L naught, let us say, plus change in length, so it has changed, so it will be the strain times the length. If uniform strain is, longitudinal strain is epsilon, so that times the length, original length will be the change in length, is it not? Change in length is what? How do you define strain? Strain is change in length divided by L, longitudinal strain. So this one will be strain multiplied by original length. So this one will be L naught plus what? Plus delta, and delta equal to, so it becomes L naught 1 plus epsilon. Just to give you a glimpse of how things can be manipulated mathematically. So change in length. So this is called longitudinal strain. But then the cross sectional dimension also was there, width was there, and now that has reduced. So there is a change in the cross sectional dimension also. So original length has reduced or reduced. So we can say now lateral strain. That means we can bring in the concept of longitudinal strain and lateral strain. Lateral strain is in this direction. So we have a lateral strain. Lateral means direction perpendicular to the applied load. If applied load is this direction, lateral strain is perpendicular to that. So LATER, lateral strain. So there will be also a strain in the transverse direction or transverse, lateral strain transverse to the norm, transverse to the axial, lateral strain divided by longitudinal or axial strain. This ratio in the linear zone is seen to be a constant. If you plot this, you will find that this is a constant. Okay. Now this will be positive. If you have applied a tensile, so this is a positive, lateral strain will become negative. Is it not? Why negative? Because it is contracting. Signs are, you have to take proper signs. So negative. So total thing is negative. Negative divided by positive is negative, and this we call, this is in for the linear material, in the linear zone will be a constant, and we denote by a symbol nu, 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 and we call this Poisson's, Poisson, Poisson. It goes by the name of a French mathematician. Now he is not English, he is French. Poisson, so it becomes Poisson's ratio. So this gentleman was, his full name is Simon, Simeon, Denis Poisson. 1781, 1840. This gentleman was a French. He was not an engineer, mathematician. So he found that yes, this ratio, and this ratio will be more than 1, less than 1 for normal material. It is, yes, for most of the engineering materials it is less than 1, but now some new materials have been developed. If you apply a load, it bulges. So you have more than 1 also. It is very funny, but yes, there are some materials now they are behaving in. So this Poisson's ratio is always nu, is between, for example, for steel it is 0.3, then it is between 0.1 and 0.2. See this concrete, we civil engineers deal with concrete material, concrete, which is a composite material. Why it is called composite? Because it consists of so many constituent materials. You have what? Concrete consists of cement, first cement is for binding, then aggregate means those stone chips, and third one is water. So water is to make slurry, and cement is put to bind these stones, and then we also put some sand in between, because cement is very fine, so slightly bigger grain material, that is sand. So cement, sand, then stone chips, and then you put water, mix all this and leave it for some time. You will find that this has become hard, and that we call it concrete. So most of our civil engineering structures are made of concrete. Of course, only problem with concrete is that when you apply under compression, it's all right. Apply a compressive load, it behaves very fine. It can take lot of compressive load, but the moment you apply tensile, it cracks through these, you have this cement which is binding material, and then both sides you have small these stone chips. So you will find that the cracks develops at that interface between this cement, sand and the stone chips, which we call aggregate. So, and it cannot take tensile load. So, in order that it takes tensile load, what is the engineers have found a method. They said, why don't we put some steel rods in the zone, put some steel rods, in the direction in which you are applying tensile force. So it becomes, we call it, that means this concrete is, inside you insert some steel rods, and then we call it reinforced concrete. And now reinforced concrete has the property that it can take both tensile as well as compressive. So that is how it is used. But then there is something very bad. Again, it is, my time is there. We always do something, but then something else happens. Yes, you are very happy. Okay, we have improved that. We have got now tensile. It can take tensile load, and now I can use it. Then people found that, well, steel rod you have put it, and then concrete is not very dense. I mean, there are always voids. Through these voids, through environment, water ingress. Water goes, enters into this, and then it starts acting between the steel and the surrounding concrete, and it starts corroding. And once the steel starts corroding, it expands. You must have seen steel rod, so it expands. Flakes up, flakes starts, appearing on the surface, and it tries to expand. Anything which expands, it will crack the concrete. So then again concrete starts cracking. So that is why in old structures you see anywhere cracks develop. So that is because of water has gone into the concrete and it has affected the steel rod, and that steel rod has started corroding, and it is called, that phenomena is called spalling, S-P-A-L-L-I-N-G, spalling. So concrete, so the spalling takes place, and then surrounding concrete cracks, and you cracks develop. So then what to do? The best thing is to do is make very good concrete, dense concrete, so that water does not enter, Put something, so good concrete, so that voids are very less. And second one, put some paint on it on the surface, so that it becomes a barrier for any water to enter into the structure. So these are some means, but then we don't do like what happens in Bombay roads, we don't construct roads properly. So what you get is, so this is okay. So this is for concrete. The moment concrete is a very important material, and rubber is not truly elastic. In fact, if you draw the diagram for rubber, stress strain, you take a piece, and test it, you will find right from the beginning, the linear portion is very small, hardly any linear. It starts like this, non-linear, right from beginning. Even concrete is non-linear, but then rubber is non-linear diagram like this. Right from beginning, it is like this. Same thing as concrete, it is a non-linear curve. Linear portion is not there. But then we can always take, a small region and say, okay, let me approximate this portion is, in the beginning it is linear. So we find for rubber, it is like this. Very high Poisson's ratio, 0.5. So this is the history of the diagram which we and then in the history, if you see, history is very important. You cannot, for anything, try to learn, how the subject developed, who were the people. So we have got, he started from 1635, Robert Hooke 1635. So how many years? 350, about 350, 60 years. So maximum, this is the history of our mechanics, but real mechanics is only about 150 years, not 350. Okay. 6. All right. There is one more, the stress strain diagram. All these people, Poisson's ratio, Young's modulus, then Robert Hooke started with the spring, then Young's came with a slightly, rod. He did the experiment and it became Young's modulus. Then Poisson's gave this ratio of lateral strain to longitudinal strain or axial strain. Achha, by the way, that minus sign is, it is minus for understanding, but Poisson's ratio is not written as minus. We always take modulus. So write it in your notes, that you will not find minus 0.3 or minus point, so not like that. Poisson's ratio is given as a modulus of the ratio. It is only for understanding that Poisson's ratio is, yes, one is extension and other one. But the real stress strain diagram, the person, the name which is there in the history, who is the person who really originated the stress strain curve. And the person is Jacob Bernoulli. So the spelling, etc., you kindly note it. Jacob Bernoulli, and he is from 1654 to 1705. And there is one more person in the history whose name I have, at least I don't hear much, not many people take his, but his name is J.V. Poncelet, L.E.T. 1788. They popularized this strain curve. So Jacob Bernoulli and they were responsible for drawing the stress strain curve for many materials. They conducted these experiments and did it. Okay, then all right. So you know now some idea. You have idea about Poisson's ratio, then modulus of velocity, strain. Now I will take another example. Now this I have a, yes, I go to the next problem. I have a small rod, I will not cut it, let us say its size is something, and I put it in hot water. What will happen? This rod, from room temperature, I put it in boiling water, which is boiling at 100 degrees centigrade. Room temperature is, right now what is the room temperature? About 26-27 degrees centigrade, yes, or 30, maximum 30, 29, okay. So I have increased the temperature. So what will happen? This rod will become, all dimensions will increase, it will expand. Of course, length dimension is more, so yes, obviously, it is raise the temperature. Temperature, I have put it in hot water. It is a steel rod. You take a sphere. Best thing, you take a sphere, a spherical ball. Put it in hot water. Originally, you take the diameter before putting in hot water. This diameter. and you will find after putting in hot water its diameter has increased. So this becomes d dash, and d dash will be more than d. Of course, if the temperature is here, from here it is T, and here T plus delta T. But this I am talking of, it is a free body. I am not applying any, yes, here I am just putting this pen of steel, I am not applying any load. So before putting in the hot water, is there any stress in this body? No, there is no stress, it is stress free, there is no load, it is free of stress. Now I put it in water, its diameter will increase, its length will increase, expand. So every particle tries to expand. See, whatever was there, a small particle, this will try to expand around it. Okay. So, no, I will not Poisson ratio is something different. And now I am saying, because here, see, originally there was no stress. Now even after this, after it has expanded, is there any stress in the body? You have a situation in hot water that, yes please, one of the girls, will there be, after I have put it in hot water, this has expanded, and this was made of steel. Originally it was stress free, do you agree? No load was applied to it, so no stress. After I put it in hot water or in fire, in a furnace, in a steel plant, put it in, of course then it will melt also. You know, the furnace temperature is so high that it will melt. I don't want it to melt, you know, I only want it to. So okay, will there be any stress after the temperature rises to T plus delta T? You don't know. There won't be any stress. But since its size has increased, there is strain. So this is a phenomena where you have strain without stress. I cannot relate this by your Hooke's law or you know. Okay, stress is not proportional to strain here. It is a phenomena. So here I don't want to go into your loaded member. So this is a free expansion. So this is free expansion. So we call this a thermal strain. Thermal. And let us denote this by epsilon T, thermal. So if coefficient of thermal expansion is alpha, coefficient of thermal, because every material has something called what is coefficient of thermal expansion, and what is, I think this you must have learned somewhere. Anyone? Coefficient of thermal expansion in physics? And what is the unit of this? Per degree centigrade or per degree Fahrenheit. Okay, let us take it. There is, so it is per degree centigrade. Nothing, no centimeter, no meter, nothing, just divided by so many coefficient of thermal expansion. So if it is so strain will be what? Thermal expansion. How will I get my strain? Alpha into, yes, alpha into, now we are talking of positive strain. So a rise in temperature will give me a positive strain. So this multiplied by delta T. So thermal strain will be this, if the original length here, now we are talking only of the, see the dimension which was major dimension, the length, increase in length. So if I want to find out what is the final length of this rod, so change in length delta L due to temperature will be strain multiplied by the length. So it will be alpha delta T into L original. So this is change in length. Now if the body is free of any constraint, you have not put any constraint, you have not put any restriction on the body against expansion or contraction, then it will expand freely. There won't be any stress produced in the body, there will be only pure strain under thermal condition. But then in reality it does not happen. Reality I will have 6. Reality I will have a rod of some cross section, let us say, let me take a solid cross section rod of some diameter. If I have, let us say I fix this one end and raise the temperature from T to T plus delta T, then this will expand. Let us say lateral strain is very small, that will be very small compared, because length is very large. Okay, so then this one will be the your change in length. So this will be delta L T, which can be found out. It is a free expansion, no stress, strain is there. So only, so if it is not constrained, see one end only is fixed, it is free to expand. Both ends are free, then again also it is free to expand. So both are same. One end fixed, again it is free to expand, there is no constraint. So it is a free expansion. So we have strain. So if it is, so no constraints, I will write just no constraints. Body is not constrained. No cons, TRAINTS. No constraints on the body. It will have only free expansion or contraction, no stress. No stress will be developed, only strain. There will be only strain. There is no law here, there is nothing like Hooke's law for this. But then I have a situation when this same rod, I have clamped it, the length is L naught, original length is L naught, that is all. It is a rod of some cross section, area of cross section, length L naught, and temperature has gone from T to delta T, T plus delta T. So what will happen? Now here we have a situation that the rod tries to expand, but then you have constrained it. So what will happen? Stress will be developed. So body will be stressed here, but will there be any longitudinal strain? So no strain here in this case, no strain, no thermal strain. I mean no strain means no thermal strain. Here I am not talking of any load. No strain, but only. So we have a very peculiar, so this is a very important case, not many people realize the difference between this and loaded structures. Temperature is a very peculiar load. With temperature you see you have a very different situation. So you have no strain and only stress. Can you find out this stress? How will you find out? How will you find out? Yes, it is a very relevant question. How will you find out the stress? So you have a situation, now I will draw it only by a single line. See, the diameter is very small compared to temperature is raised. I want to find out the stress in this rod. There is no load. You don't see anything on the body. Listen, you don't see any load on the body. Still it will be stressed, and sometimes the stress may be very high. So please find out. So how it is done is in the following way. First you make it, because this one is, you know that yes, it will be stressed. So there will be, that means both the supports will be offering some reaction. So actually this rod, if you draw the free body diagram, if I cut the rod here, if you draw the free body diagram of this rod, there is free body diagram I am drawing. So this will be under compression or tension. It is not necessary that you realize, but I think it is better to understand the nature of forces right from beginning. You understand, if it is trying to expand, you are not allowing it to expand. So what kind of force will be generated inside the body? Compression. So there will be force here C and C, compression. On the support, what kind of force will be there? On the support, C. On the support this side, now I will draw it on the support this side, what kind of C. So when they come together, they are both equal and opposite, and it will be like this. So you have separated the support. So this is the nature of force. Yes, there is some force C, compression. I want to find out C, because if you know C, then you can C divided by area of cross section. This is area of cross section A. So C divided by area of cross section is the stress, normal stress in this rod. Simple. Conceptually it is very simple. So don't try to go in mathematics, or try to understand. A rod is there which is trying to expand, and then you are not allowing it to expand. So this will be stress, and this will be axial stress, normal stress, axial stress. So there are different names: axial, normal stress, and you can find out. But how to find out C? So our main job is to find out C. Okay. What is the best way? Yes, best way is, because this is C. Yes, had the rod been free, means I had removed one support, then it would have expanded. This much would have been expansion, free expansion. So this is the free expansion. In case, supposing you remove this, so this is a free expansion. And this you can find out. What is the amount of free expansion? What is delta? This is delta. How much is delta, please? Alpha into delta T into the length of the rod, let us say L naught. So this is known. Free expansion of the rod is known. But now you have a situation that there is no free expansion. So push this rod by a force such that I get a displacement equal to this much. So that means you have to now push it. So you have a situation here. Now next problem, that you have the same rod expanded, which has already expanded. I don't want expansion this one. Since I do not want this expanded rod, I want to bring it to the original length. Yes or no? Yes. So how will you bring it? Yes, I must apply a force C here. A force C such that this comes back. But by the way, what is that? So now we have a problem. How to find out the change in length because of a force, axial force C. You got it? Now this we have not yet covered. This we have not yet covered. How to find out deformation, how to find out axial displacement of a rod under action of force. Okay. So now next chapter is axial deformation. Are members subjected to axial load? How do they deform? And it is very simple. So now I would like to, that you have the rod, one end, and it is subjected to some force P. What is displacement? How to do it? So this we will learn. Now here this is nothing to do with, this one has nothing to do with thermal. The first part had to do something with thermal, but now this one is pure mechanical. So this load is called mechanical load that you apply, and this temperature change is called thermal load. We can also call it due to change in temperature or because of thermal load. Thermal load is hidden, you don't see. I will cover it tomorrow.